do this. Hello, people. Another beautiful day, or evening, or night. Yep. Hope your 5 senses work. Health and strength is good, or excellent. What? What's up, gamers? Listen to this. Listen. By the way, what's up, Tweaktown? Listen to this. I seen both your articles, by the way. The one that showed Nintendo made $69 billion off the Nintendo Switch. Okay, so they did have the money to buy Activision Blizzard. Okay, we get that. All right, but this one is even better. Listen to this. Did Sony lead the FTC to create high performance console market designation? Let me read the question again. Did Sony lead the FTC to create the high performance console market designation? You know what the answer to that question is? No. Sony did not lead the FTC to create the high performance console designation market. High performance console been existed since the early days in video games. All right. Look at the Panasonic 3DO. Look at the Atari Jaguar. Since I took y'all that far back, let me ask y'all this. Between the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and the Neo Geo, which console is high performance? It would be the Neo Geo. Okay. Between the Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, and Nintendo 64, which console do you consider to be high performance? It would be the Nintendo 64. Alright. Between the Dreamcast, which is 200 megahertz, using a 1 gigs GD-ROM disc. Between the PlayStation 2, 300 megahertz, using a DVD disc, 4 gigs. Between the GameCube, 485 megahertz, using a 1.1 gig of storage mini CD. And between the Xbox, 733 megahertz, using a DVD disc, about 4 to 8 gigs. Which console do you think is high performance? It's the Xbox. The Xbox One beat the PlayStation 2 in performance and ran the games better. That is truth and that is facts. Let me ask y'all this. Between the Wii, which is 733 megahertz, like the original Xbox, the 360, the PS3, and the Wii U, which console do you consider to be high performance console? It will be the PlayStation 3 because it was using Blu-ray. Okay. Between the Wii U, Xbox One, and PS4, which console do you consider to be high performance? High performance consoles. It would be the Xbox One X. And between the Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, and the Switch, which one do you consider to be high performance? It would be the Xbox Series X. Okay? So yeah, high performance console being existed. The video game industry runs off power and specs. CPU power, GPU power, and RAM. Okay? The video game industry pushes the tech industry to come out with new hardware to keep up. The real monster behind the tech industry is video games. Okay? Alright. Just so we can clear the air. But anyway, let's get into this. I'm gonna read the last 2 paragraphs on this because this is a pretty long article. Pretty long. Actually, I could read it. It'd take me about 10 minutes, but let me read it anyway. Let me read it. Alright, listen to this. Says here, popular belief is that Sony led to the creation to a market designation that removes Nintendo from the big 3. Is that the case? We investigate further in an attempt to discover the answer. So in other words, the FTC try to treat Nintendo Corporation like the weakest link, the middleman. Okay? Anyway, let me keep going here. Says here, Federal Trade Commission turned heads when it created the high-performance console market in an effort to narrow its focus to the PlayStation versus Xbox and Microsoft Activision merger case. The Federal Trade Commission didn't start anything. Tweaktown. High performance console been existed since the Atari Jaguar, since the Panasonic 3DO, since the since the Turbo Graphics. if we want to go back, that far. But anyway, let me keep going here. It says here, this is a common practice for regulators who often recognize what are called relevant markets, or areas of competition that could be affected by a merger. In doing so, the Federal Trade Commission effectively removed Nintendo one of the most powerful forces in video game history. One of the most powerful forces in gaming history from the equation altogether. See, this is where the Federal Trade Commission is wrong. They're forgetting that Nintendo saved the game industry when the game industry was having its little issues. Anyway, let me keep going here. It says here, the FTC has determined 3 areas where Microsoft Activision merger could cause anti-competitive effects: console, multi-gaming subscription, and cloud gaming subscription service. The proposed acquisition is reasonably likely to substantially lessen competition or tend to create a monopoly in the relevant market for high-performance console. Tweaktown, you're wrong again. Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard does not create a monopoly. The video game industry don't stop just because you buy Activision Blizzard. Stop it. Anyway, it says here, multi-game content library subscription service and cloud gaming subscription service. The FTC wrote in December filed complaint. To determine anti-competitive effects, the FTC is able to narrow specific portions of a market to help isolate and illustrate these effects. That the case with high-performance console market designation. Says here, on a technical level, this isolation makes sense. After all, through our investigation, we've concluded that PlayStation and Xbox compete more closely with one another than they do with Nintendo. However, this designation has proven to be device and confusing, and even more quizzical is Sony involvement in the market definition. The high-performance market been existed before PlayStation and Nintendo even came into the picture. I can take you back to the 486, to the 286, 386 days. Don't get me started. Anyway, it says here, after all, Sony Interactive Entertainment is the largest opposer to the merger and has alleged that the merger could cause harm to its PlayStation business should Microsoft withhold Call of Duty in any capacity, whether it be full game sales or access via subscription cloud service. Sony allegations have been largely redacted, and the most salient of information that is the most argumentative against the merger seems to surround the 10-year deal that Microsoft has offered competitors like Nintendo and Nvidia. See, Sony is mad because they don't have control anymore. When they had the Call of Duty contract, they got the exclusive content to themselves, and then the competitors have to wait. But now that Microsoft is giving out 10-year contracts, everybody gets the content all at the same time. No one has to wait. And the good thing about the 10-year contracts, you can renew it. Anyway, it says here, it's largely believed that the FTC market designation helps Sony because it removes Nintendo from the equation. After all, Nintendo has managed to stay incredibly competitive without the inclusion of Call of Duty. Some would say this invalidates an entire theory of harm. So Nintendo survived without Call of Duty, huh? So why can't PlayStation? Especially when they got their own shooters. Anyway, says here, however, that's precisely a big reason why Nintendo is being removed from the picture, because it does not have Call of Duty. Says who? Are you guys forgetting that Call of Duty was on the 3DS, GameCube, Nintendo Wii, and the Wii U? And did you know that the games on the 3DS, GameCube, and Wii, meaning all those Call of Duties, they need to be brought over to the Wii U, take full advantage of the hardware? and be fully functional and utilized, and get the rest of the content and update, so they can perform like Black Ops 2 and Ghost. Did you all know that? Okay, let's keep going here. Says here, however, that's precisely a big reason why Nintendo is being removed from the picture, because it does not have Call of Duty. The FTC can't determine anti-competitive effects on a platform that does not include the content in which is believed to potentially cause said anti-competitive effect. In short, if Nintendo never had Call of Duty, then it can't be harmed if it is withheld access to Call of Duty. So if Nintendo doesn't have Call of Duty can't harm Nintendo. Anyway, let me keep going here. It says here, the converse is what most people wonder about, though. If Nintendo is able to be successful without Call of Duty, then why can't Sony do the same? Exactly my point. What happened to your Exactly. That's what I was saying. What happened to your shooters, Sony? What happened to SOCOM, Killzone, and Resistance? How comes they weren't consistent as Activision Blizzard? Okay, let's keep going here. It says here, there's many other reasons that Nintendo has been isolated, including the disparities and difference between the Switch when compared to the very similar PlayStation and Xbox console, as well as significant operational difference in multi-game subscription, cloud gaming, and offer first-party game libraries. So who came up with the concept of removing Nintendo first? FTC. It says here, was it the regulators like the FTC, or was it Sony? It says here, first real instance I could find where Sony discussed the operational difference of Nintendo versus PlayStation is in filing from Brazilian regulators Arcade. Then it says, notice how Sony does not argue that Nintendo is in its own separate segment of the console market. Sony outlines operational difference that can be independently derived with minimal knowledge of the big three gaming business, either on a consumer level or more on a more advanced level based on business acumen. Says here, these are similar determination that could be arrived at independently, either by regulators with in-depth knowledge of the video game market, journalists who scan company financials, or everyday consumers who buy gaming products. There's an inherent knowledge and understanding of the difference between PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox. Furthermore, we have to really think about how the FTC high-performance console relevant market would affect Sony's own argument. Here's the problem, FTC. The high-performance console market been existing since the 286 days, 386 days, 486. Every time you come out with a new CPU, the performance in video games go up. It's been existing since. Let me keep going here. It says here, as defined in the FTC administrative complaint, the agency seems to isolate its high-performance console relevant market to Gen 9 console, which includes PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. Then it says here, we have to wonder, why would Sony instigate the market definition if it removed PlayStation 4? After all, Sony made most of its money from Call of Duty on PlayStation 4. And let's not forget the pandemic. Anyway, it says here, now, this isn't to say the FTC has ignored the PS4 or Xbox One generation entirely. This would be impossible. The FTC has looked through millions of documents, including in-depth earnings report and exact revenues from Call of Duty on PlayStation and Xbox. The high-performance console market relevant market is just the area in which the merger could theoretically have anti-competitive effects, and Gen 9 is relatively new, so it's believed that the merger would affect this generation. The Activision Blizzard merger is not going to affect anybody. That's why Microsoft was giving out 10-year contracts, so everybody, so no one is left behind. Okay, and when those 10-year contract is up, they can renew it. And by the way, Activision needs the Call of Duty user base, no matter what platform it's on. You get it? Okay. All right. Let me keep going here. All right. It says here, it's also worth mentioning that the Competition and Market Authority (CMA) in the United Kingdom has come to similar conclusions on the Big Three, but it didn't go so far as to remove Nintendo from a narrow console market definition. Unlike the FTC, the CMA has concluded in its competitive assessment that it is not appropriate to further segment by console type. In fact, the CMA removed its console gaming theory of harm altogether after determining that Microsoft had no ability to incentive to foreclose rival by withholding access to Call of Duty franchise. See what I mean? Activision needs the Call of Duty user base. It wouldn't make any sense to just keep it on Xbox only. Anyway, says here, interestingly enough, it was both Microsoft and Activision who argued in favor of keeping Nintendo in the picture. At the least, that's what they publicly told the CMA. Yeah, you have to keep Nintendo in the picture because there's Call of Duty fans on Nintendo. That's why. And then there's people on the Wii U right now that plays Call of Duty, and they want to play those Call of Duty like World at War, Modern Warfare 4, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops with all the missing content and updates, and where they can have the Wii U Pro Controller function, the GameCube, and the Wii Pro. Anyway, let's keep going here. Where are we? All right, now almost coming to a close here. Says the CMA determines otherwise based on the aforementioned points. The difference in console power games libraries, content subscription, as well as internal document from Microsoft that track Xbox more closely with PlayStation. The CMA says that Nintendo was frequently absent in Microsoft competitive console gaming assessment document. Then it says here, keep going here. Says here, almost done here. I think I got 3 more paragraphs. Let me go through this. See here. Okay, here we go. Says here, last 2. Here we go. Says here, so who actually started the designation, since the origins from the high performance console market definition is something that can be arrived at independently. That is PlayStation and Xbox competing more closely with one another than they do with Nintendo on all relevant segments, consoles, subscriptions, and cloud. It seems logical to say that Sony is not who came up with the segmentation. It was the FTC. But anyway, says here, does Sony support segmentation? It appears so. Yes, segmentation does help Sony case to a degree, but the high performance console market definition also puts significant weight on Sony's platform and legal counsel, who will have to persuade not just the FTC complaint counsel, but the FTC administrative law judge, D. Michael Chappelle, that the proposed merger would indeed lead to anti-competitive effects in the high-end performance console market. Okay, that's the end of the article. I will leave the link in the description box. Let's see. Let me see if I can get back to the top of this. Here's the deal. The high performance console market been existing since computers started, since video games started. Every generation, whatever consoles that was in that generation, they were high performance console, and that's what the industry was using at the time. But as generation goes on, the consoles start to get powerful. Okay, after we left the Nintendo 64, the Sega Saturn, and PlayStation 1 days, that's when video games start to pick up a little steam. You can see it with the Dreamcast. You can see it with the GameCube. You can see it with the PS2, and you can see it with the original Xbox. Okay, the consoles start to get high performance because now we were getting into megahertz. But then when we got to the 360 and PlayStation 3, and we start getting into gigahertz, and then cores, and then after that cores start to come into play, and then there's a thing called what's that, dual pipelining, if you understand CPU power and how they work. Look, the high performance console market been existing already. Okay, it's been there. It's just that people try to use sales and exclusive to try to cover over the power, CPU power, GPU power, and RAMs of video games. So this stuff been existing. You know, it's just like with the PS2 and PS2, Xbox One, GameCube, and Dreamcast. People will tell you that, oh, the PlayStation 2 sold more than the Xbox. Okay, fine. But the original Xbox ran games better than the PlayStation 2. Because the PlayStation 2 is 300 megahertz. The original Xbox is 733 megahertz. Big difference. So the original Xbox outperformed the PlayStation 2. Okay? Yeah, so high performance consoles were back then. So to say that Sony lead the FTC, nah. It was the FTC who tried to pull that stunt. They tried to remove Nintendo from the equation. Okay? Treat them like the middleman. Treat them like the weakest link. Treat them like the insignificant one. But you can't do that. And then they're forgetting that Call of Duty was on the 3DS, GameCube, Wii, and Wii U. Yeah. So Microsoft purchasing Activision Blizzard. Sony's just mad is that they're gonna lose power. That's what they're mad about. Because when they had Call of Duty to them, when they had the contract with Call of Duty, they were the first ones getting the content and the updates, and everybody else had to wait. But the moment Activision Blizzard popped up on the radar, and Microsoft realized that you got the contract, and then you don't own Activision Blizzard, they swooped in. So yeah, they were right for doing this. But Microsoft giving out 10-year contracts to everybody, what it means is that when it comes to Call of Duty, no one will be left out. Okay? And when those 10-year contracts is about to be up, then they can renew it. That's what it means. Okay? So yeah. They were right for doing this, man. But Sony is complaining too much. The article even talks about Nintendo surviving without Call of Duty. So if Nintendo can do it, why can't Sony? I'm saying, then on top of that, Sony has their own shooters that they abandoned. Killzone, Resistance, and SOCOM. How comes those developers weren't consistent like Activision is with Call of Duty? And that's a question the PlayStation fans need to ask, you know. So yeah, but when it comes to high performance consoles, though, we've been having a high performance console based on the generation they came out. I mean, back in the 8-bit Nintendo, Super Nintendo days, the Neo Geos, the TurboGrafx, Panasonic 3DO, Atari Jaguar, those were high performance consoles for that time. Okay? When we got to the PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn and 64, we were in the 32 and 64-bit era. Those were high performance consoles. Then when we got to the Dreamcast, PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox, the power of the console began to rise now. Now we're in megahertz. Then when it came to the 360 PS3, now we're in gigahertz. Okay? Yeah. So high performance console been existing since the early days of video games, man. So to me this looks like Sony is doing a bunch of complaining because they number one, they didn't bought Activision Blizzard, okay? And for them to make up fake stories that Microsoft is going to release, that Activision is going to release a Call of Duty that's going to be messy and buggy, that was wrong on their part, okay? Microsoft was giving out 10-year contracts to everybody. and they're trying to make sure that every base is covered. So when it comes to Call of Duty, they can get it. Now once that 10-year is up, they can renew it if they choose to or if they want to. Okay, so yeah, yeah. So anyway, man. But other than that, man, high performance consoles been existing, man. They've been around. They've been around. Okay, yeah. You take the Dreamcast, PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox. Yeah, those consoles are high performance. Yeah, they might be 200 megahertz Dreamcast, 300 megahertz PlayStation, 485 megahertz GameCube, and 733 megahertz original Xbox. Those are high performance consoles, man. So they've been existing, man. So yeah, but like the article says though, it's good. They got some convincing to do. They got Sony got to convince them, boy. Got to convince the FTC and probably the UK. You know, so yeah, we'll see what comes out of this. But yeah, high performance consoles been around, man. This is nothing new. The video game industry pushes the tech industry. The real monster behind the tech industry is video games. That's why you see these That's why you see these hardware vendors coming out with new motherboards, graphics cards, RAM, new storage to keep up with the high demands of video games. So yeah, video games is a monster, man. So yeah, you got to have a powerful console to keep up with video games, especially with today's games and the way they're being made right now. Yeah, you know, so yeah, power and specs matters, man. It's just that some people in the game industry, you know, some people out there like to talk about sales and exclusives, and then they try to use, like the PlayStation fans, they'll try to use sales and exclusive and try to cover over power and specs and CPU and GPU power, you know. But whoever got the most powerful console runs the games better. It's been like that, you know. It's been like that, and the Dreamcast, PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox proves that point. The original Xbox is no joke when it comes to for that generation. When it comes to the Dreamcast, PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox. The original Xbox is no joke. So yeah, you ever played Halo 1? Have you ever watched when you play Halo 1, and when the game is running, it is showing the game when the Xbox is running the game, and it shows the demo when they were on the beach, and you take that grenade and Master Chief took the grenade and threw it. You see all that dirt that raised up off the ground? Oh yeah, that's some power, man. That original Xbox is no joke, man. So yeah, high performance console, they've been existing, man. So yeah, I mean, hey, look at Halo 1, man. I mean, look at Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. I mean, look at what's a good graphical game on the Dreamcast? Which one can I use here? What's a good one? Probably Soul Calibur 1. Or look at what's a good graphical game on PS2 here? A good graphical one. Look at Soul Calibur 3. So yeah, you know, high performance console been existing, man. You know, people try to downplay power and specs with sales and exclusive, but if you go back to the Dreamcast, PS2, and GameCube, and the original Xbox, you will know what high performance is. Take the best Dreamcast graphical game you got and line it up against the GameCube most graphical game you got, and then line it up against a PlayStation 2 most graphical game, and then line it up against the original Xbox, and you will know what high performance is. Okay, so yeah, they've been existing. Anyway, I'll leave this video for y'all to enjoy. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, still a Star Wars and Star Trek fan. Dark Side. Go. Peace.